A próxima pergunta que eu gostaria de te fazer é a seguinte: como é que as suas escavações, o seu trabalho recente de escavações em Nazaré, mudou as percepções e, digamos assim, mudou o conhecimento acadêmico no mundo?
Okay, the work in Nazareth in the 21st century, which began in 2004 with an archaeological survey of the surroundings of Nazareth, has told us very much more than we previously knew about the Nazareth that Jesus lived in and about its context in the local landscape. And I shall say something about that. The first thing is that we now know that Nazareth was in a very densely populated part of Galilee. Very little was known of the landscape surrounding first century Nazareth when I began my work. We knew that there was a valley to its north, which was likely to be where most of the agricultural land related to Nazareth was situated. And across that valley, it's quite a wide valley, about 7 kilometers away, there was a Roman town called Sepphoris. Sometimes you'll hear of it by its Israeli name, Zippori, but in English, Sepphoris. And Sepphoris was quite a conventional Roman urban centre. It had all the buildings we would expect of such a place, shops, elaborate houses, not so rich houses for most of the people, a theatre, various public buildings that are typical of Roman towns, even Roman temples, although most of the population in Sepphoris was probably Jewish, living under Roman rule and exercising, it seems, a quite conventional form of Judaism, even alongside Roman paganism and alongside the way of life in the town, which was typical of many Roman provincial urban centres. So that was Sepphoris. And before my work, it was quite conventional among archaeologists and historians to assume that Nazareth, across the valley from Sepphoris, was very influenced in cultural terms, economic terms, etc., by Sepphoris. What we showed in doing an archaeological survey of the valley between them was that this was not the case. Sepphoris was very Roman in many ways, but the cultural and economic effects of that urban centre extended only halfway across the valley. In the southern side of the valley, closer to Nazareth, all those influences, if you like, stop. And in the settlements we found there, and we found that the valley was extremely densely populated in the early Roman period, in the period we're talking about. All those settlements close to Nazareth had no trace of manufactured goods or anything that came from Sepphoris that were made and produced in any way by other people than Jews. And in the Nazareth side of the valley, everything we could find, and everything anybody else looking at its archaeology has found, was manufactured by the Jewish population. So it looks as if the population in the valley, in the villages and farms in the valley, closer to Nazareth, were rejecting Roman imperial culture and probably, as part of that, not integrated into the economy of Sepphoris itself. So there was, if you like, a cultural frontier between more Roman, but still Jewish populations in the north of the valley and very much less Roman, not Roman at all, people in the south of the valley near Nazareth. And that was not at all known before. Something else that was not known before, if I may go on, before your next question, was that there was a cluster, a group of quarries, small quarries around Nazareth. Now, quarries were known around Sepphoris to quarry the stone for the buildings, for the roads, etc. But why would there be a cluster of quarries around a small place? A village, probably, like Nazareth. And the most likely explanation, of course, we can't prove this from current evidence, but the most likely explanation is that Nazareth was one of a type of sites known across the Roman Empire, particularly the Eastern Roman Empire, but the whole Roman Empire really, which archaeologists sometimes call quarry settlements, which were basically farming communities, but doing a small amount of quarrying to supplement their income, to supplement the wealth they could generate from farming. And so that paints Nazareth in a different light to anything we had before. Certainly the Bible and any Roman period written sources don't tell us that about Nazareth. And of course, that's very interesting when we hear from the Bible that Joseph and Jesus were described using the word tekton in Greek. Now, tekton is normally translated in English as carpenter, and many people will have heard Joseph described as a carpenter. Well, it can mean that, and it might mean that, but it really technically means someone involved in construction, particularly in building things for any purpose. So it could equally apply to someone working stone, as you would if you were quarrying stone and making things out of it, as it could to a carpenter. So that might cast that biblical description in a new light. So that's what we found around Nazareth. If you like, I shall say a little bit about what we found in Nazareth, which was, if anything, more interesting even than that.